Now, if x and y are both members of set T, so x can be, let's say there is a number x, right? X can be mx square minus 1, and y can be my square minus 1. Now, then which of the following must be the square of an integer? So which of these isn't square of the integer? So if we square this and square this, so the thing is this would be m x to the power 4 plus 1, and then there will be minus 2 mx. The thing is, since there will be 1 here and minus 2 mx here, we are not necessarily sure whether this would be a perfect square or not. Same thing for y square. Okay. We also don't know whether multiplying these two values would actually yield a square. Okay. But what we can do is we can actually write these as this way. So x plus 1 equals m of x square, then xy plus 1 equals m of y square. The thing is, now these two values are perfect squares. Does that make sense to everyone? Is there anyone who has not understood this part? So since x and y are the parts of set T, the thing is, and every number is represented by m square minus 1. So what we can do is we can add add 1 to the both parts, and then what will happen is this becomes perfect squares. Now if you multiply 1 square to the square of another integer, the result would also be a perfect square. Now this is this value and this is this value. So this is the option which would actually yield a perfect square. Okay. Anyone who has not understood this part? Okay. Next question we have, if x is greater than 1, then 1 minus 2 root x plus x over 1 minus root x equals to what? You have to first of all, you have to factorize this. This can be written as 1 minus root x and then plus x over 1 minus root x. Now what we'll do is we'll take out common this here. So instead of doing, like, first of all summing the fraction, let's solve the numerator first. Okay, so this is 1 minus root x plus x. So we can take out 1 common from these two. This becomes 1 minus root x. And we can take out minus root x common from these two. This becomes 1 minus root x. Okay, so then what we can do is from this term and this term we can take out 1 minus root x as common, and then we'll be left with 1 minus root x here as well. So it becomes 1 minus root x whole squared. Now over 1 minus root x. Okay, so the one bracket gets cancelled out with the other bracket, so the only one remaining would be 1 minus root x. So option E would be the correct option. Anyone who has understood this?
Sir?
Yeah.
Sir, I have a doubt on the previous question.
10th one?
Yeah, sir.
Yeah.
So like it's given that x and y are members of the set T. So why did you multiply x and y in m square x minus 1?
Oh, it was the index number m of x.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you multiplied that.
No. Yeah.
Okay,
And the thing is, my stylus is not working properly today. So, and
okay,
like sometimes my handwriting becomes illegible. So it is m of x and m of y. Like it can be any number at that particular position.
Yes, sir. Yes, got it, sir. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Anyone else who has a problem until 11th? Okay. I'll start a timer. I'll start a timer for 30 seconds. If you solve this, kindly send your answers in the chat box. Pratyusha, would you like to explain?
Yes, sir. So when we solve this inequality, so x by 9 greater than 199 by 360,
Yeah,
we can cross multiply 9 to the other side.
right.
So x becomes greater than 4.97.
Hmm.
Um, x becomes greater than 4.97. Sir, not equals to, it will be greater than.
Right, right. Great.
So we can't determine, it can be less also, it can be more than 5 also, because there are many numbers between 4.975 and 5.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Yes. So, since x can be 4.99, x can be 4.9, x can be 5, x can be any. Okay. So until unless it is given in the question that x belong to a certain set of numbers. So since it is not specified here that x is an integer, had it been specified that x is an integer, even then like x would have been greater than 975, then the smallest possible value for x would have been 5. Okay. So even then, like until unless it is specified that which category that the number belongs to, you'll assume that the number is real numbers, and there are multiple possibilities for x to be 4.9, 4.98, 5, 10, anything. So the relationship cannot be determined between the quantities. Next question. Again, I'll sort of set timer for 30 seconds. We already solved this. Please let me know the answer. Venkatesh, would you like to?
Yes, sir. So
Hmm.
basically, what I did was cross multiplied the equations,
Right.
and finally I got x square equal to 4.
Hmm.
That will be plus minus 2, so it can be 2 and less than 2. So you can't determine it.
Just a second. My stylus is not working properly, so I'll have to write it out. Right. So we'll cross multiply, and this becomes as x times 2 plus x, and which is equal to 2 plus x multiplied by 2. Right.
Yes, sir.
So this becomes as 2x plus this becomes as x square, and this becomes as 4 plus 2x. So then what we can do is we can take all of the values towards one side. So x square, now 2x and 2x will be cancelled. Sorry, this is 4, not 2. 2x and 2x will be cancelled, so this becomes 4. So x becomes as plus minus 2. X becomes as plus minus 2. So since there are two different values possible for x, and on quantity b there is only one thing given, which is 2, so therefore it cannot be determined as which of these values would be. I mean, it can be both the possibilities. At one time a would be greater, equal, and at the other time it would be that a would be um, same. So we cannot determine whether the relation between the two values.
But sir, we can like simply cancel out the numerators, right? Because in both LHS and RHS, the numerators are same.
Right.
we
So
can.
the thing is, whenever that is possible, sure, but whenever quadratic equations are involved, or basically whenever algebra is involved, you do not necessarily cancel out. You always follow the rule of multiplicative inverse and additive inverse. Okay, first thing. Second thing is, like there are possibilities that if we plug in like +2 and -2, like it's not as if there is only one possibility for the answer. There is a possibility that if we put x as -2, then what happens is this becomes as 0, and this becomes as 0 again. So that is also possible. And if you put 2, so 2 equals 2 is also possible. So the option would be D. Yes, cancelling will make your 1, 2 disappear. It is a quadratic equation at the end. That is the thing. Next, this question is wrong. This one. Did you all solve this question by any chance? Any one of you?
Yes, sir, I solved it and I got D.
You got?
D option.
The thing is, it is not framed in a better way. The thing is, so m and then brackets here. This would give us, first of all, what we'll do is we'll solve this. So this becomes 1 plus m square plus sorry, minus 2m, and then it will be 1 plus 1. So what will happen is, yeah, so this will become m square minus 2m and plus 1 plus 2, sorry. Okay, now if let's say it is minus a, so what happens is instead of m you plug in minus a, or like 1 minus a. So what happens is this becomes as 1 plus a square plus 2a, and this becomes as plus 2, and sorry, plus 1. So it will be a square plus 2a plus 2, and here it will be a square plus 2 minus 2a. So the thing is, with even with this, since the quantity of a, like the value of a is not known to us, we cannot determine. Like if let's say a is 1, okay, so this 1 becomes 1 plus 2 plus 2, which is 5, and here it will become 1 plus 2 minus 2, which will become 1. But if let's say we take the value of a as
You can try 0.
if we try 0, okay, so 0, this here becomes 2, this here becomes minus 2. So 1 is again, a is greater, b is smaller. Then if let's say we try a as minus 1, since here it was a square plus 2a and plus 2, and if let's say here we try minus 1, and for this the value was a square plus 2 minus 2a. So when we are plugging minus 1, this becomes 1 plus 2 minus 2, this becomes as 1, and this value will be minus 1 would be 1 plus 2 and then plus 2. So this becomes 5. So for all the negative values, b will be greater. For all the positive values, a will be greater. So that is why we cannot determine which of these values would be, like the relationship cannot be determined at the end. With the next question, anyone who has done this?
Sorry, is it option D?
No, option?
D.
I think so. I don't remember exactly. The larger the two number exceeds a small number by 9, the sum of the twice the larger. If smaller is a larger number exceeds of two numbers exceeds twice the smaller. So this is the larger number and this is the smaller number. If the sum of twice the larger, the sum of twice the larger, oh sorry, not this. The sum of twice the larger and 5 times the smaller. So 5a plus 2 into 2a plus 9 is equals to 74. So this would be the answer. Option D, yes. Okay, so starting with quadratic equations.
Sir, could you please explain the 14th question once again?
14th questions. Okay. So this is a question of functions. Okay, this will become more clear when we'll study functions and notations. What is happening is when in the square bracket you are plugging in m, the value becomes this. Okay, so you can basically solve this bracket. So this becomes like, even if let's say you do not solve this bracket, let's keep it this way only. So if m is this, negative m will become 1. Like if let's say instead of m it is negative m, this will be 1 minus m, right? And whole squared and then plus 1. So this will become 1 plus m whole squared plus 1. So similarly, if you replace m with a, if it is negative a, it will be 1 plus a whole square plus 1. And if it is positive a, it will become 1 minus a whole square plus 1. Okay, does that make sense till now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so if you have the positive values for a, if even if it is let's say 1, okay, all the positive values, positive integers for a. So if a is 1, this becomes 2 square because 1 plus 1 would be 2 and 2 square would be 4. 4 plus 1, 5. And if you plug in 1 here, this becomes 1. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if let's say you plug in, instead of 1, you plug in 2, like positive 2. So this becomes 3 square because 1 plus 2 will be 3. So 3 square 9, 9 plus 1, this becomes 10. And this becomes like if it is like 2, so this becomes minus 1 whole square, which is 1. And then plus 1 would be 2. So you can see, for as you keep on increasing, this value will still be greater than quantity b. Okay, does it make sense still here?
Yes, sir.
So, but like if you take negative value for it, okay, if you take the value of a as let's say 1 minus 1, so this becomes 0, and then 0 plus 1 will be 1, and this becomes 2. So 2 square would be 4 and 1, so 5. Same if you let's say put minus 2. Okay, so minus 2 would be minus 2 will give us 1, minus 1 as the answer here, and minus 1 square would be 1. 1 plus 1 would be 2. Now minus 2 here, if you plug as the value of a, this gives us 3. So 3 square will be 9, and 9 plus 1 would be 10. So this time what will happen is quantity b will be greater than quantity a. So there are two possibilities where quantity a is greater than b, and then the other is quantity a is smaller than b. There might also be a possibility where quantity a and quantity b are equal to each other. Okay, there might definitely be a possibility where this will also happen. Okay, so since all the three possibilities are possible, we cannot determine a relation between the two quantities. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Next we have quadratic equations. Now the first thing with quadratic equation is that you need to understand that there are different types of equations in general. First of all, now there is equations and then there is inequations. Okay, There is equations and then there is inequations or inequality, basically, if you want to say. Now both of these are of two types, which is linear and then non-linear. Okay, so equations, if it is linear, that means that in a graph, in a Cartesian plane, there will be a straight line which will be plotted for that particular equation. Same goes with inequality. If the inequality is plotted, it will be straight lines. Okay, it will not be like I mean, it can straight line in the sense there will be no curve particularly. Okay, but when it comes to non-linear, what happens is the graph, when it's plotted for that particular equation or that particular inequation, it has curves in it. Okay, so there are different types of curves, which is hyperbola, parabola. Okay, there is an upside opening curve or a downside opening curve. Okay, so this is how graphs are plotted now. But like, what makes an equation a non-linear equation? So first of all, if an equation is linear, okay, it has the skeleton form of ax plus b. Now here, when the power of x, or basically the power of variable, the highest or degree, to better term it, it is degree. Okay, so if the highest degree of that particular variable is 1, then that equation is a linear equation. However, when it starts from 2 and goes beyond, then the highest degree, like for 2, it is a quadratic equation. For when the highest power of the variable is 3 in that equation, then it is a cubic equation. When it is 4, it is biquadratic. When it is 6, it is bicubic. Okay, does it make sense to everyone? Is there anyone who does not understand this particular thing until now? Okay then. So this is like, these are the different types of equations. Now a quadratic equation has the highest degree as 2, and this here is the skeletal form of the quadratic equation, where a cannot be 0, because if a becomes 0, then this term becomes 0, and then the highest degree in the equation is not 2 anymore. For an equation to be called a quadratic equation, it is very imperative that the highest degree of that equation is 2. It is neither more and nor less. Okay, now in the skeleton equation, or basically the basic format of the equation, a is the coefficient of x square, b is the coefficient of x, and c is known as the constant. Okay, now when an equation has as many powers, if let's say it has a degree of 2, then that particular equation has 2 solutions. Okay, it has 2 answers to itself. There are 2 solutions which will satisfy this particular equation. Now these solutions or these answers are also known as zeros of the equation, or they're also known as roots of the equation, as Venkatesh had Venkatesh, right? Yeah, Venkatesh had actually told earlier that, like, it is known as zeros or roots. So in the previous question, 14th question, like we were talking about cancelling out roots here, not 14th, sorry, 13th. So that basically, since we got 2 answers, that is 2 roots of the equation, or 2 roots of the for x. Now there is a way to actually take out these roots. There is a clear-cut formula. Now it is not imperative that you learn this formula. It is also not necessary that you use this formula. Okay, if you are able to take out this formula, the values of the roots without using the formula, that is wonderful. That is great. But still, just for the best, like worst case scenario, you should remember this particular formula. This is also known as the Sridharacharya method or Sridharacharya formula. So the value of x in a quadratic equation ax square plus bx plus c equals 0. So the value of x can be determined by this minus b plus minus under root 4a square minus sorry, I'm so sorry, b square minus 4ac over 2a. Okay, this is the formula for your roots. Now again, you do not have to necessarily remember this formula, you don't have to learn this formula. This is not now something which you would be using on the test altogether, but it is still good if you keep this handy. So if you have not written down or if you do not know this formula, kindly write this down right now. Okay, now this part of the formula, which is b square minus 4ac, is also called the determinant, and it is denoted by letter D. Okay, now if the value of D is equal to 0, then the roots are equal as well as real. Sorry, real and equal. If the value of D is greater than 0, then roots are unequal, but they are still real. And if the value of D is less than 0, then the roots are imaginary. And they would be unequal. Now the thing is, why does this happen? Because the value of D is under the root, which is why it is the determinant. So if it is like the value of D is 0, then this becomes 0 altogether. And what you can do is you can basically plug minus B over 2A and you can take out the value of X. Okay. And if the value of D is greater than 0, then this will be a positive, like this there will be one value of X which will be minus B plus under root D over 2A, and the other would be minus B minus under root D over 2A. So there will be two distinct roots. Okay, so the roots will be unequal. So this is the determinant formula. Now the thing is, since we are not necessarily using this, what is the method that we will use? So the basic, the most simplest or the most used method is splitting the middle term. We have to split this term into two factors such as P and Q. Okay, we have to split this term, the term B, the coefficient of X, which is B, in such a manner that P plus Q should be equal to B, and P times Q, that is P into Q, should be equal to A times C or A into C. Okay, so let's talk about an equation. Let's talk about 4x square plus 12x and plus 9. Now the thing is, 4 times 9 is 36. Now we have to arrange 36 in such a manner that the factors of 36 when added gives us 12, and when multiplied gives us 36 of course. So 36 can be arranged as 1 and 36. It can also be arranged as 8, 18 and 2. It can also be arranged as 3 and 12. It can also be arranged as 4 and 9, then 6 and 6. 6 and 6 are those factors which when added would give us 12 and which when multiplied will give us 36. So 6x plus 6x and plus 9. Now what we can do is, from this we can take out 2x common, which will be 2x plus 3, and from this we can take out 3 common, which will be 2x plus 3 again. So the factorization will be 2x plus 3 and 2x plus 3. Okay, now obviously you have to remember the plus and minus sign. So if let's say ax square plus bx and plus c are given, then both p and q p and q will be positive. If let's say it is ax square minus bx and plus c given, then both of them would be negative. If let's say it is ax square plus bx minus c given, then one of them is positive and the other one is negative. And here all of this we are considering either p is equal to q or p is greater than q in numerical value. Okay, so if in the numerical value, if c is negative and b is positive, what happens is the larger number would be positive and the smaller number would be negative. Now the other one is when both of them are negative. So this happens when p will the bigger, like the quantitative value, the p would be negative and q would be positive. Okay, so when the smaller number is positive and the bigger number is negative, this is when this happens. Okay, so you can also write it down if you want to. If you don't, that is great. We'll start with the questions then. Anyone who has any question until now? Okay, then moving on to questions right away then. Which of the following is the root of the equation 2x square minus 20x equals 48? I will give you 1 minute for this. Let's go. Yes, Venkatesh, would you like to help?
Yes, sir. So basically, we bring 48 to the other side of the equation and then divide the whole equation by 2. You will get x square minus 10x minus 24 equal to 0. And the factors would be minus 12 and 2.
Minus 12 and
2.
Yeah. So x minus 12 and x plus 2.
Plus 2. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now remember, these are the factors. Roots is something. So if let's say x plus a is a factor and x plus x minus b is a factor, then what happens is the root will be x equals to minus a. Why? Because this here is equal to 0. So you send this on the right hand side and becomes negative. And if you send this on the right hand side, it becomes positive. Okay. So since here it is minus 12, 12 would be the answer. Because 12 can be and the other one would be minus 2, but that is not an option. here. So next question we have, if a minus 3 whole square equals 5 minus 10a, then which of the following is the possible value of a? Again, 1 minute. Let's go. Hmm. Then would you like to give a try?
Yes, sir.
Hmm.
So when we expand this a minus 3 whole square, it will become a square plus 9 minus 6a,
Hmm.
and it will become equal to 5 minus 10a. So
Hmm.
after rearranging the entire thing, we'll get a square plus 4a plus 4 equal to 0.
Hmm.
And then we'll split the 4a in 2a and 2a.
Yeah.
We'll get as a plus 2 whole square equal to 0, which will give us a equal to minus 2.
Right. Okay. Great. We first of all expand a minus 3 whole square, and then what we can do is we can take all the right hand side values to here. This gives us a square plus 4a and plus 4, yeah, equals 0. So the values would be a plus 2, sorry, the factors, and a plus 2. Okay, so since it is a plus 2 and a plus 2, minus 2 would be the answer. Minus 2 would be the root. Next question. This is a nice question. Try solving this without like solving all the equations. If you can solve this without doing that. So the roots of this would be x equals to 5 and x equals to minus 3. Now, how can we determine that? 15 is a number which is made up of only two prime factors, 5 and 3. It is given here minus 2. So minus 5 and plus 3 would be the factors. Okay. Now, if you change them into roots, this would be 5 here and this would be minus 3. Now, it is saying that x is greater than 0. So this particular thing cannot be the root for these equations. Okay, the three equations given below. X is equal to 5. Okay, there is one value of x which has to be 5. If it is 5, then this value, given that coefficient of x is 1, then this particular value, the constant value, cannot be a multiple of any other prime number. I mean, it can only, it should have a multiple of 5 in it. Okay, so 9, this one is already out of the picture, but this still doesn't end here. Okay, since here it is x equals to 5, the possibility is that x can be minus 5 here. Okay, and the other one can be minus 2, right? So that is also a possibility here, that both of the roots are negative. But for that to happen, this shall have been positive, but this is not positive, this is negative. So x minus 5x, x minus 5 and x minus 2 is a root. Okay, so which will be x equals to 5, x equals to 5 and x equals to 2. So this would be an equation which would have a root. Similarly, this would also be an equation which would have a root. You do not have to necessarily solve the equations to find the roots. You can just have a look at the constant as well. That would also help you find the answer. So option D would be the answer. Anyone who still wants an explanation about this question? Okay, the next question, which of the following equations has a root in common with same thing? Solve for constant first and then check. Okay, remember that the signs of B and C. Anyone who has solved the question? Anyone who wants to answer? 8 here, so it can be 4 and 2. It can be 2 and 4. It can be 1 and 8. These are the only possible values. But the thing is, since this is positive and this is negative, so both of the roots, both of the factors would be x minus 4 and x minus 2, which is negative, and then x will be equal to 4 and x will also be equal to 2. Now, which of the following have the root common with this? Now here it would.
So is it D?
Yeah, it is D. It is D. Here what you can do is 4 will not be the root, 2 will 2 be a root. Here it is minus 2, so it will be minus 2 or 1 or minus 1 or 2. Okay. And since it is positive, so 2 would be like the factor would be x plus 2. Okay. So that since it is x plus 2, it will have a negative root. So this cannot be the option. Same thing for here. The roots here would be imaginary. X square equals to minus 4. So it will be under root minus 4, or what we can do is yeah, like since this is there, plus minus under root. So here the factors can be 8 and 2, and it can be 16 and 1, but none of these solve this. Okay, it can also be 4 and 4. They do not solve it for. You have to solve this equation by Sridharacharya. So the only one would be D. I mean, you can cross check and everything.
Sir, is there any easy way to solve this?
Sorry?
Sir, is there any easy way to solve this? Like
Yeah, you remember that if let's say B is positive and C is positive, both the roots will be negative. Roots I'm talking about. Okay. If it is B is positive and C is negative, then the root which will be negative will be bigger number. So like if let's say 7 and 5, so it will be minus 7 plus 5. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
You will only have, for quadratic equations, the thing is you will only have to try like either splitting the middle term, or you need to remember how the nature of the roots will be. Okay, so if it is that ax square minus bx and it is c plus c, so here the greater root, the greater number, one would be negative and one would be positive. The greater number would be negative, and if both of them are negative, so both of the roots will be positive. This is something that you would have to remember. Okay, like this is the easiest way just to determine just by reading the values. So, but you have to obviously practice to get the hang of it. Now, if x is positive integer and x plus 2 is divisible by 10, what is the remainder when x square plus 4x plus 9 is divisible by 10? I'll give 1 minute. Have you all solved this? I hope you have all solved this. Let's see. Yes, Pratusha, would you like to help?
So it's given that x plus 2 is divisible by 10. So obviously the square of x plus 2 will also be divisible by 10.
Yes, good.
After squaring, we get x square plus 4x plus 4. And in the equation, it's given x square plus 4x plus 9. So after subtracting, we can see that it's coming 5.
Great, great, wonderful. So yes, so this also, remember, by this what you can also say is, if let's say if let's say there is a number such as a, and a is divisible by x, so a square will also be divisible by x. Okay, now also let it like turn it around. If let's say a square is divisible by, let's say, n, so a will be divisible by the under root or the square root of n. Does that make sense to everyone? If you remember, we had a question where it was given that some number n square is divisible by 72, and we had to find what is the greatest possible number for n by which it can be divisible, and there were options 6, 12, 36 and 48, and then there was another option as well, 24, I guess. So the answer was 12. So the thing is, if x square is divisible by 72, then it will also be divisible by its square root. Okay, so which is basically what? 6 root 2. Okay, now the thing is, since square is divisible by this, there has to be but like we're digressing from the question. Anyway, so if x is if a is divisible by a number n, then a square will also be divisible by n. However, when it is given that a square is divisible by n, there is nothing else given about anything, then a will definitely be divisible by n root. Okay. Now inequalities, the only two things that you have to first remember is the additive property or the additive rule and the multiplicative rule. like multiplicative rule of 1, additive rule of 0, basically additive property, multiplicative property. Apart from that, inequalities is nothing but same as equations or equalities. The only difference being with inequalities you get a range of values. With equality you have one fixed answer, whereas when inequality is involved, what happens is certain value will be greater than a fixed position. So here the fixed position is -2 and the value of x is either greater than -2 or it is also equal to -2, this here. Okay, if the value of x is smaller than -2, then all the values smaller than -2 are possible, and the value of -2 is possible as well. But when it is given that x is only greater than -2, then this here indicates that all the values greater than -2 are possible, but -2 itself is not possible. Okay, same thing here. If x is less than -2, then all the possible values less than -2 are possible, but -2 itself is not possible for the inequality or the value. Okay, this is a basic understanding of inequality. You also, another thing is, if let's say a is less than b, then if you add the same integer on both sides of the equation, both sides of the inequation, the value, the inequality doesn't change. If you multiply with the same integer, considering when multiplying that the integer is positive. Okay, so if you are multiplying with the same positive integer on both sides, the inequality doesn't change. Same thing with subtraction, and same thing with division as well. Okay, however, if let's say you are actually multiplying with a negative integer on both sides, then the inequality would reverse. This would be greater than this. Same thing with division. If you are dividing with a negative inequality, negative integer, the inequality will reverse. Okay. Anyone who has a problem till here? Also, one common occurrence is on the GRE test, there will be an inequality where there will be two values. Okay, and you will be given that it is less than or equal to 0. Okay, the GRE test loves to give inequalities like this. When there are two values, when multiplied together, it is less than or equal to 0. Now remember that a is less than equal to 0 and b is less than equal to 0. Both the cases are not possible. The only way that can happen is when a is 0, less than 0, then b either has to be greater than 0 or equal to 0. Only then will the product of the two will be less than 0 or equal to 0. Does this make sense? Anyone who has not understood? Okay, why is it so? Because the product of these two numbers is less than 0. So it has to be that one of the numbers has to be negative. It has to be like, it is necessary for one number to be negative for the product to be finally negative at the end. Or the other possibility is b is less than 0 and a is greater than or equal to 0. Okay, this here is also an important part. Remember this. Now going forward, this is again equality in equations and inequations. If it is only numbers, then what happens is it is like it cannot be solved further, and that is why it is only known as a sentence. Okay, we know that 2 plus 3 is 5. We know that 2 times 3 added with 4 is equal to 10. Okay, there is no new occurrence of a value here. However, when a equation or an inequation can be solved, okay, there will be a certain value which can come out of this. So then this becomes an open statement. It can be -1, it can be 1, it can be 0, it can be multitude numbers which can have this value, I mean which will satisfy this inequation. Similarly for this, okay, there has to be a certain particular number which will satisfy, and different numbers will satisfy different equations. This is something that we've already discussed. Additive inverse and multiplicative inverse is something that you need to remember. Okay, we'll start with the questions right away. Mod. Now, also before we solve this, remember that whenever mod is given, so mod means that if let's say it is x in the mod, then this value can have two answers, which is x and minus x. Okay, so if let's say x is equal to mod 5, basically, then this means that the value of x can be 5 as well as the value of x can be -5. Okay, so these are the possible values for mod. So when any equation is given, any inequation is given mod, remember that this can be 2n minus 3, which is less than 1, and then there is a possibility of 2n minus 3, which can be greater than 1, minus 1, sorry, because the negative value is also possible. So when this is there, what you do is 2n is less than 4 or n is less than 2. And this here, n is greater, 2n is greater than 2 or n is greater than 1. So n is greater than 1 and n is less than 2. This is the range. 4 by 3 is 1.33 recurring. Now the thing is, the value of n can be 1.5. It can also be 1.2. It can also be 1.01, anything. So there are multiple possible values for n. Therefore, it cannot be determined whether n will be greater or quantity b would be greater. So option D would be the answer. So we'll start solving the next question from now. This is the question here. Now let's go. I'll give you 1.5 minutes for this. Go. Venkatesh, would you like to help us with the answer? Do you have a pen tablet, Venkatesh, by any chance?
What's it?
Okay. Wait a second. Okay, continue. I think. Does anyone know how can I give sharing controls to someone else as well? Okay, not a problem. I can't see the option here. Anyway, continue.
So, sir, like I simplified the equation,
Right.
whole equation,
It
and
came as
x minus 4
hmm.
into x plus 3. Uh, like there will be brackets,
Yeah.
less than equal to 0.
Okay. So x minus 4 is less than 0 or x plus 3 is greater than or equal to 0. Yes. And this would be x minus 4 which will be greater or equal to 0 or x is less than x plus 3 is less than 0. So this will be x is less than minus 3 and x is greater than or equal to 4. So the thing is this would be an open graph. Okay, so x is less than minus 3 and x is greater than 4. So from minus 3 this part would be covered and from 4 this part would be covered. But for this x is less than 4 and x is greater than or equal to minus 3. So what will happen is when you will plot this graph, this part of the number line will be covered. So since there is an option here where since here it is x is also equal to 4, right? So we can write that x is greater than or equal to minus 3 and is less than or equal to 4. So this would be the option. Anyone who has not understood?
Could you please repeat it?
Do you want me to solve the whole question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So first thing first is x square plus 2x minus 9 over 3. What you can do is you can first of all take the 3 to the RHS. So x square plus 2x minus 9. Wait a second. Right, it becomes this x x squared plus 2x minus 9 equals less than or equal to 3 times x plus 1. Okay, now if you solve this further, this becomes x square plus 2x. We can bring out both the terms from the RHS to the LHS. This becomes minus 3x and minus 3, which would be less than or equal to 0. Now this would be x square minus x and minus 12, which will be less than or equal to 0. The factors would be x square minus 4x plus 3x minus 12 equal to 0. Then it will be x common x minus 4 and then plus 3 common x minus 4, which will be less than or equal to 0. Does that make sense until here? The two factors will be x minus 4 and x plus 3, which will be less than or equal to 0. Okay. Now the possibility, as I talked earlier, when there are two numbers in multiplication, then what happens is, like this one, either this one will be less than 0 or x plus 3 will be less than 0. One has to be negative for this inequality to occur. If one is not negative, this inequality cannot occur. Okay, so if x minus 4 is less than 0, then x plus 3 will be greater than or equal to 0. And if x plus 3 is less than 0, then x minus 4 will be greater than or equal to 0. Okay. So if x is less than minus x, x minus 4 is less than minus is 0, then we can write x is less than 4. And here we can write it x is greater than or equal to 0 or equal to minus 3. So this can be arranged as minus 3 is less than or equal to x is less than 4. Now there is only like this cannot be the answer, then this cannot be the answer, and this cannot be the answer. Okay, there is only one possibility for this. I mean, these two possibilities for this. Now, let's check for this. This gives us x is less than minus 3 and x is greater than equal to 4. So this can be written as x is less than minus 3 and x will be greater x will be greater than or equal to 4. Now if you plot, like, since if you combine these two equations, this will be x minus 3 is less than equal to x, which is less than equal to 4. So only one option, which can be this. Not so anyway, like anyway, if you see it is 4 here, so this cannot be the answer. No, it can only be this answer. If you want to plot the graph, if you want to plot this in equation, so if let's say this is minus 3 and this is 4, so since x is either greater than or equal to minus 3, so all the values from here, and since x is less than or equal to 4 up till here, all the values here would be possible for x. For this inequality, since x is less than minus 3, it will be an open plotting. So all the negative values below minus 3 would be possible, and all the positive value above 4 will be possible. Here, the dots will be darkened because minus 3 and 4 are included. Here, minus 3 is not included and 4 is included. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome. Next question we have. Now this is a very nice question. Pretty easy as well.
So I guess except 30, all will be the answers.
No. 30 would not be the answer.
20, 30, and 40.
No. So so this will have the solutions as 0.1x minus 3 is either greater than equal to 1 or 0.1x minus 3 is less than equal to 1. Okay, so if it is greater than equal to 1, what will happen is 0.1x will be greater than or equal to 4, or x will be greater than equal to 40. Okay, if you divide 4 by 0.1, it will be 40. So 40, 50, 60 will be the answer. And if you do it in this way, this will be less than,
Sir,
oh,
won't
sorry,
it be minus 1?
minus 1. Sorry, yes. This would be minus 1. This becomes 2. So x will be less than or equal to 20. So 20 and 10. 30 would not come into the picture. Okay. Anyone who has understood? Okay, great.
So like there can be an alternative solution of this one. Like
Yeah.
say, like what we can do is if we simply solve the greater than equal to 1, we'll get x greater than equal to 40.
Yes,
And if we like, or else we can also do that, like if we substitute all the values of x, whatever options are there, so
right.
in 3 only we will get answer as 0, which will contradict the inequality. So
Right.
except 30 we can get all the options as correct answers.
Yeah. So all the options are correct answers. We can
Yes.
do that. Like if you want to substitute, you can do that as well. Thing is, I mean, this here is an is a very simple inequality. In the GRE test, what will happen is there will be inequalities which will be a bit difficult to solve if you start substituting, or like not necessarily difficult, which will be longer to solve if you start substituting all the values. So you can obviously, like for this particular question, sure, you can substitute the values and take out the answers. So then also 10, 20, 40, 50, 60, only 5 answers will be correct. 30 will not be the answer. But it is like preferable, like, you solve the equation and then any equation and then take out the answer. It can also depend how the inequation is given to you. Okay, here is a very interesting question. Mods on both sides. Actually, I'll give anyone who's still solving the question. Okay, So since both of the values are in mod, what we can do is we can square both the sides. Since the possibility for this is like, sorry, not this. This is like either it will give a positive value or it will give a negative value. Same for this as well, positive or negative values. What we can do is we can square on both the sides. Okay, and then solve the inequality. If you are trying that we take this as positive and this as positive, then this as positive and this as negative, and then this as negative and this as positive, there will obviously you will come up with a solution, but that would take too much of time, first thing, and then there is also a possibility of error. Okay, so if you actually square on both the sides, what you can do is then you can take all of the LHS to the RHS. Then what happens is 0 is greater than 9x square minus x square. 36 and 36 will get cancelled. Then plus 36, or if you want to take 36x and then plus 12x. Okay, which would give us 8x square plus 48x is less than 0. Now, one common mistake about inequality or quadratic equation is, or one, like, it is not necessarily a mistake, but people will do that. Oh, since 8x is common between 8x square and 48x, what we'll do is we'll divide this here, and this becomes x plus 6 is less than 0. So this is not the answer. The thing is 8x can also be less than 0. That is also there. Okay, the positive possibilities will be 8x can be less than 0 and x plus 6 will be greater than 0, and then 8x can be greater than 0 and x plus 6 will be less than 0. Okay, so this here are the possibilities. Now if you solve, so if 8x is less than 0, this gives you that x is less than 0, right? This is one scenario. If 8 is x less than 0 and 8 is greater than minus 5, so greater than, or sorry, equal to as well, right? So yes, so this here would give you values as, why it will be equal to, can anyone tell me why it will be equal to? Because the product of both of them is 0, right? It is less than 0. So no, it cannot actually be equal to 0, because then what happens is it will also be equal to 0, and that is not given. So right, so if 8x is less than 0, then x is less than 0, and if x plus 6 is greater than 0, then x is greater than minus 5. So the values will be minus 4, minus 2, minus 6, sorry, minus 4, minus 5, minus 3, minus 2, and minus 1. These are the 5 possible values. Now here, if 8x is greater than 0, then x is greater than 0 and x is less than minus 6. Now the thing is, if x is greater than 0, x cannot be negative here, because if x is greater than 0, right, if x is greater than 0, in this particular possibility, then what happens is 8x times x plus 6. Okay, it will be more than 0, right? It will be more than 0, and then this possibility cannot happen because the inequation is 8x times x plus 6 shall be less than 0. So x greater than 0 cannot be possible. So this inequality goes out of the picture. Okay, so the only possible values are these 5 values. So 5 would be the answer. Anyone who has not understood this part wants me to repeat it again in any manner?
Yeah, can you repeat?
Okay, so first of all, did you understand solving this?
Yeah.
Right. So we get the values as this here. Okay. Now we can take out 8x as common. This becomes x plus 6. Okay. And which is less than 0. Now put any positive value in this. Okay. If you put, there are two possible situations where, since it is less than 0, right? We discussed when AB would be less than 0, then A has to be less than 0 and B has to be greater than 0. Similarly, in this situation, what will happen is A will be greater than 0 and B will be less than 0, right? There are two possibilities. When A is greater, then B has to be smaller than 0. And if A is less than 0, then B will have to be greater than 0. These are the two possibilities. Now, let's consider the same possibilities for this particular inequality. If 8x is less than 0, then what happens is x shall be less than 0. And if 8x is actually less, then x plus 6 would be greater than 0. Okay, so this would give us x would be greater than minus 6. Is it understandable till here?
Yeah.
So you can write this inequality in one line as minus 6 is less than x is less than 0. So the possibilities for x becomes minus 1, comma, minus 2, comma, minus 3, comma, minus 4, and comma, minus 5. Is that clear till here?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So the next situation is where 8x is greater than 0. So x plus 6 should be less than 0 then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now if 8x is greater than 0, then x shall be greater than 0 and x shall be less than minus 6. So if you put this in a inequality phrase, then since x is actually less than minus 6, this would be there, and since x is greater than 0, this would be there. Okay, so there are two possibilities. X can be less than minus 6 or x can be greater than 0. Now if let's say x is greater than 0, if we put any value in this particular inequality, if let's say we take the value of x as 1, so it becomes 8 times 7, which is not less than 0. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if this is not possible, then this also will not be possible.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
It has to go both.
Yes.
Both of them have to go hand in hand. So the only possibility is this, and therefore the 5 possible, these are the 5 possible answers. So there will be only 5 solutions to this inequation.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Next question we have: if x is an integer and 121 is less than x square, which is less than equal to 361, which of the following is the sum of all the possible values of x? This is a pretty easy question actually. Pratisha, would you like to?
It's given x square is greater than 121.
Just a second, just a second. Sorry. Go on.
So x will be greater than 11,
Hmm.
and it's given that 361 is greater than equals to x square. So 19 will be greater than equals to x, because 19 is square of 360. 361 is
Right.
square of 19.
Right.
So if we add from 12 to 19, we get 124.
Right. But when you're taking square root,
Yes.
it will also become negative, right?
Yes, sir.
So this here, this is again one common mistake that people would make. Remember that when you're taking square root with inequalities, to also talk about the other possibility where x can be, that inequality will be reversed. Okay, so what the square root of 121 is 11 and the square root of 361 would be 19. Okay, so this will be plus 11 and minus 11 and then plus 19 and minus 19. Now, if you add all, so 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and similarly, all the negative values from minus 12 to minus 19. So if you add all the values, the sum would be 0. Does that make sense to everyone? Pratisha, do you understand where?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
Understood.
Nice, nice, but good attempt actually. Next question. What is that? Yeah. Functions now. Acha. Okay, before starting functions, let's take a 2-minute break. I'll also put the laptop on charge. We'll meet here in 2 minutes, okay? 2.5 actually. Please give me 2 more minutes. We'll start in 2 more minutes. Okay. So functions, basically, functions and notations. Okay. So what are functions about? Now, until now, we have studied that every equation or an inequation has a root. Okay, please do not mind my scribbling. But let's say the equation is ax plus b. So it will have a certain value which will satisfy this particular equation, and the answer will be equal to 0. Okay. Similarly, a quadratic equation ax square plus bx plus c, it will also be equal to 0. So there will be a certain value to this variable x which would satisfy this equation, okay, which is always equal to 0. Now the thing is, for every quadratic equation, for every equation, basically there are certain values which would always satisfy, okay, and which would satisfy the equation, and the equation would ultimately be 0. The value of equation would ultimately be 0, right? The thing is, with functions, what happens is, instead of considering only the roots, we also consider the values which may or may not be the roots. Okay, so let's take the equation as x squared plus 2x plus 1. Now the factors of this would be x plus 1 and x plus 1. Okay, or the roots will be x equals to -1 comma -1. This is a perfect square. Whenever there is a quadratic equation which is a perfect square, then the roots are actually equal. Okay. Now, if we employ -1 in the value of x, at the place of x, sorry, then what happens is, this becomes 1, this becomes -2, and this becomes 1 again. So the ultimate answer, the answer that it will yield, will be 0. And whenever a whenever a value when substituted in the equations yields the answer as 0, then that is known as the root of the equation. Okay, but with functions what happens is it will ask you to, it will give you as this functions is notated as this f of x. Okay, for any value of x, the function is equal to, let's say, x square plus 3x plus 4. Okay, and it is asking you to solve the equation for -3. Now, if it is asking you to solve for -3, what you do is you basically just substitute the value of x as -3 and you solve the equation. Okay, so this becomes 9, this becomes -9, and this becomes 4. So f of -3 will give us the value as 4. So for the equation x square plus 3x plus 4, when f is -3, the answer is 4. That is it to it. That is the only type of questions that you would have on the GRE test. Okay, there might be variations for this. So such as 4 at 3 is equal to 4 plus 3 over 4 minus 3. Okay, basically, as if let's say you are given that a at b is equal to a times b over a minus b. Okay, so you might also be given questions like this. This is a function here and you have to find out the value for this, right? So this will be 7 over 1 if let's say we are following this function. If it is 4 at 3, for this function what happens is it becomes 12 over 1, so 12 is the answer. Okay, so this is also how you will receive questions on the GRE test. So we'll begin with the also there might be function within a function. You might also receive question as f of g of x. Okay, and you are asked the answer of, let's say, f of g of -2. Okay, where let's say f of x is given as 2x plus 3 and g of x is given as, let's take, x plus 2. Okay, so the first thing is you solve the inner part. So g of -2, you solve this function, becomes -2 plus 2, which is 0. Then what happens is, since you've gotten the answer for g of -2 as 0, you substitute the value here. This becomes 2 times 0 plus 3, which is 0 plus 3 or 3. So f of g of -2 would be 3. This would be the answer. That is it that you have to understand about functions. Now we'll start with the questions. If f of x is equals to 2x and g of x is equals to x cubed, what is f of g of -3? This again can be solved within a minute. So let's go. You can write the answers in the chat box. Yes, Pradusha, would you like to help?
Sir, g of -3 equals to -27. And f of -27 comes to -54.
Yes. Okay, great. So minus 54, option D would be the answer. Next question we have, operation is defined by the equation this. See, questions like this would also be there. What is the value of 2 double head arrow minus 3? Go. Okay, so 2 plus minus 3 will give us minus 1, and the value of B is minus 3. So this becomes 1 by 3. So 1 by 3 would be the answer. Next question we have x box y equals x square plus 2x over 2xy whole over x. Same thing, you just have to employ the values and solve them. Hmm. So x square would be 16 plus 2 times of 4 times 3 all over 4. This would give us 16 plus 24 over 4 or 40 over 4, which is 10. So answer B would be the correct answer. Next we have f of 2a. This is a very interesting question. F of 2a equals to 2 of fa, and f of 6 equals to 11. What is f of 24? Anyone who's still solving? Okay, so since it is given that f of 2a is equals to f of 2f of a, let's take a as 1. Okay, so this will become f of 2 is actually equal to twice of f of 1. Okay, so this is basically the function here. Or if let's say we take the value of a as 2, so this becomes f of 4 is equals to twice the f of sorry, twice the f of 2. Okay, so what we can do here is we can write this as 2 times 12. So this can also be written as f of 2f of 12, and then 12 can be written as 2 times 6. So it can be written as 2 times, this 2 will come here or becomes 4f of 6. Now f of 6 is given as 11. So 4 into 11 would be 44. Option C would be the answer. Anyone who has not understood? Okay. Now we have, for which of the following? Yeah. For which of the following g of x is greatest if all real numbers x? For g of x is equals to x square plus 2x plus 1. Hmm. Yes. Pratusha, would you like to help us? Pratusha?
Sir, I tried by putting all the values in X.
Yeah, we can do that as well. And the second, I mean, that is the way that we'll have to go about as well. But the first thing would be to factorize this. This would come as x plus 1 whole squared. Okay. Now put off, if you put minus 1, this would be 0. So this is out of the picture. If you put minus 2, right, as the value, this would come as minus 1, which gives us 1 basically. And if you put as 3, this gives us minus 2, which is 4. If you put 0.5, that would be 1.5, which would be 2.25. Okay. And again, if you put 0, it will be 1 again. So the answer would be minus 3. Minus 3 would give us the greatest value of all. Does that make sense? This would become 9, this would become minus 6, and this would become plus 1. So it will be 4. This here would give us the greatest value. Yes, Venkatesh. Okay, so we'll stop here for today. You all can actually take, had I shared the link for this question, for these, oh wait a second. What you can do is, yeah, you can take screenshots here. Question number 31, 32, 33, 34, and then 35. So these 5 questions are for your homework. Also, please, like, there's only been one. Only Venkatesh sent me the solutions for the questions that I'd given yesterday. So it's very imperative. Like, if I'm asking you to send the answers for the homework, as as a mail, please do so. Okay. I might not be able to reply to the mail right away, but I do see whether like you all have replied or not. So that is very important. If I'm asking you to do certain assignments, please do that. Anyone who has still not been able to take screenshots of any question?
Uh, 31.
31.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
32, sir.
Okay. So if any one of you have any problems, you can stay behind. If not, you can leave. Also, before going, please make sure that you have watched all the videos in the arithmetic section, and also you start watching the videos for the algebra section as well. Okay, go to your Magoosh portal and make sure that you are actually watching the videos in, in accordance with the topics that we have covered today. Okay, that will actually help you strengthen your topics, will actually also help you clear out the doubts which you were not able to ask here. Okay, and then obviously, like, please do the questions from your GRE prep as well as your Quinton sets. Your C1 would be scheduled soon, and has your C1 been scheduled already? Any, like, have you all given the C1?
No, sir. We are yet
No,
to
no?
do.
No, not
Yeah. Okay, your C1 will be scheduled soon enough, and in algebra we are only left with one topic, which is word problems, and then there is the algebraic review. So we'll complete that in the next session itself, and next week we'll also start with geometry. Okay, given the trajectory, or given how we have been actually like covering up our topics, will probably be done by I think today is the 30th. 1, 2, algebra, geometry. Yeah, we would be done by maximum of 27th of August. We wouldn't, like, 27th of August is also, like, I think way much. Hopefully we'll be done by 20th of August. If not, maximum would be the next week. So yeah, that is it. Please make sure that you practice all the questions, and also please send me the answers. Write the subject as your batch number, which is GRE LC 252, and then your, like, whatever homework it is. Since it is functions, make sure you write functions. Anyone who has any questions can stay behind. If not, you can leave. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Hi sir, can you solve that first question of the class? That